This is Desert Boy here. You know, a lot of times we talk about Christmas in July. Well, it's still June, but sometimes we can have a little early Christmas present. So today, as you can see, you know, I kind of like things that are a little bit older. You might have noticed my computer monitor here. So let's take a look at something that's a little more style of the Old West with the new Ruger Wrangler. This unboxing here is something that it's basically you get the box. It's priced at $249. Manufacturer suggested retail price, if I remember right, on Ruger. That's just information. You can probably get it a little bit less at your local dealer. You'd have to check around. There's essentially 3 different models. One's all black, one's got kind of a silver aluminum type finish, the other one's got kind of a bronze finish. So today if we look at what's in the box, we can see that we have the Ruger Wrangler, which is a .22 long rifle. And let's see what else we got in the box for right now. We'll safety check this here in just a moment. But for the moment, let's just set it down here. Set this back here. I'll set this down here for just a moment. And the rest of the box, you have some other packing materials, and then, as often with Rugers, you have a lock, and you have some other information in here. And one of the things that's nice about it is you have the manual, which you need to read the manual whenever you get a new firearm. Make sure you're familiar with how it functions, how it takes down, all the safe operation elements of it. And especially since this is a single action, it's going to work differently than maybe what you're used to, unless you've done a lot of that. And if I remember right, I think in the manual you'll find a lot of interesting things. If I remember correctly, and maybe some of you might correct me on this if I'm wrong, but they talk about the fixed sights on here. They're actually set for, I believe, about 15 yards, I believe. And there's a kind of a thank you in here from Ruger. So that's what's essentially in the box. There's some information in there. And all these padding and so forth. A lot of times, I think when we want to learn about something new, it's good to start off with a smaller caliber if you're able to. In this case, as I said before, I'm a hobbyist. I'm not an expert. This is just my opinions about things. If you look at this, it's a single action. Single actions are new for me. I have an interest to, looking at my beard, you might think, yeah, he might be interested in cowboy action shooting. Quite possible. Someday that might happen. I believe this is about 30 ounces. It's got about a 4.62 inch barrel, and it's got a nice coating on it. The grips are kind of a plastic material, but overall it's a nice weight of a gun. So let's take a little closer look at it here, shall we? Okay, so let's go ahead and work on showing that the weapon is safe and unloaded. In order to do that, as you can see, they have a factory installed, kind of a block or chamber flag almost type of device here. Sometimes on double action ones, it's a round disc. On these single actions, I guess they use this. So what we're going to do is if you look at the Revolver, once again, it's an aluminum alloy. It's about 30 ounces. It's got a type of Cerakote finish on it. Once again, they do come in bronze along with this silver and a black color. So in order for us to, we're going to have to take the cylinder out so we can remove that block. So let's go ahead then. What you have to do, normally you would open this loading gate here. This is called the loading gate on a single action. Normally we would turn the Revolver cylinder and check and make sure everything's empty. If we were checking it safe with the trigger down, of course. On the newer Rugers, and I would talk to your local gun expert or your local gun dealer if you have any questions about the type of Ruger that you have. On the newer ones that have the transfer bar mechanism, which we'll talk about in a minute, and have this loading gate, there's only two positions. There's the hammers all the way for the hammer all the way down, all the way back. And when you open the loading gate, it allows the cylinder to rotate. On the older ones, it works in a different way. I'm not going to go into that because we're just going to focus in on how this Ruger Wrangler works for this particular discussion. Okay, so what we have to do now is we have to go over here. We have to press this. This is called the base pin latch. This is the base pin, which for me, I'm new to all this, so this is new for me. Take that out and you pull the cylinder out to the side that the loading gate's on. We can remove this block. As you can see, there's no rounds in here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to reassemble that. Just bear with me if I struggle a little bit getting it lined up because I'm a little bit new at some of this. So what you're going to do is get this up in here and press this base pin latch down. You may have to move this around a little bit. Make sure the loading gate remains down. Once you get it in there, you make sure that the base pin latch engages. And then normally what we would do is we would look through here. We'd look at each of these cylinders to make sure there's nothing in them. Another way we can do that is as we bring each one up, we can bring the ejector lines with it. That one's empty, right? We can bring around to the next one. That one's empty. Bring around to the next one. That one's empty. Bring around to the next one. That one's empty. Bring around to the next one. That's number 5. And this is number 6. So we know this gun is unloaded. We can go ahead and close the loading gate at this point. So with the newer Rugers that have a transfer bar mechanism, what happens is when the trigger's down, there's a transfer bar that has to be in position between the hammer and the firing pin in order for the gun to fire. When this is down, it is not in its place to allow it to fire. So you need to read the manual. I would always read the manual to make sure what yours says. But essentially, it allows for a person with this style of weapon with the transfer bar to carry 6 rounds instead of 5 normally. In older guns, you never had a round in the chamber with the hammer down because there was no transfer bar that prevented the hammer from engaging the firing pin. And if you were to drop the gun or hit the hammer, the gun could discharge. But you'd always make sure that you read your manual and that you're comfortable with how your gun functions or get expert advice on how to be sure how that works. Okay, so if we were to pull this back, Ruger's manual does say that it is okay to dry fire. We have checked it empty. If we were to go ahead and pull the trigger, that's the trigger pull. There isn't the reset like there is in a double action. So if you go to pull again, it's not going to do that. You have to pull the hammer back again. And then you have to pull the trigger. If if you look here, you'll see that this bar is up here. That's the transfer bar. That's the firing pin. This is the hammer. When you have it in this position like this, and you pull the trigger, it comes down on that and transfers the energy of the hammer to the transfer bar to the firing pin, and the weapon fires. When you let the trigger out, that transfer bar is out of the way, so it prevents it from being able to contact the firing pin. So if we were firing the gun and we finished firing it, of course what we would do is we'd make sure that it was safe for us to do so. The gun always pointed in a safe direction, and we would go ahead and we would go through and we would eject the various rounds as we looked at before. We just eject those rounds. So you can see the cylinder rotates freely without pulling back on the hammer. I'm not as an expert on any of this. Remember, I'm a hobbyist, so my understanding is in older firearms they function differently. But once again, you need to talk to whoever you feel can give you the best information on that, that's an expert and really understands that, preferably your gun dealer or your certified instructor. Once you've done all that, you could load more rounds in it, and you'll turn them one at a time until you get them all loaded, and then you would go ahead and you would put that down. Once again, after you'd fired it, you would use that ejector to eject the rounds. So many of you that know that, that's all new for me. Has a nice feel to it. I did check the manual. The sights are set at the factory for 15 yards. It's just a blade sight with a notch here that you look down. And once again, it's a pretty good value. Like they said, there's different models. So if you're looking for something that's inexpensive but well made, and I haven't had it to the range yet, so I'll have to do a little range follow-up. I appreciate your time. I hope that this was helpful for you and gave you kind of a first look at the Ruger Wrangler. As always, be safe, in everything you do. Make sure you read the manuals. Make sure you get appropriate expert instruction whenever you are handling firearms. Thank you very much. Have a good day. And once again, it's kind of fun to have a kind of a replica of the Old West that you can go out and enjoy and just experience what it was like for people maybe 100 years ago or even today. Thanks again.